we've got, I don't know that we're going to have that many over there, so you could potentially shift, but we're fine sharing. I think we're okay. Please, please, please. People have a tendency to have side conversations.
Check, check.
Thank you, sir. Is that muted? That's not muted.
That Amazon city council up there this time. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The woman. Well, I mean, they had this guy. They were back.
to it with moderate to few deviation. We will begin by doing roll call.
Good evening, everyone. Kim Moreland, Prosper, Portland.
You'll need to push your mic.
Hello?
Yep, you're on.
Shonisha Smith. I'm the Prosper Portland advocate, I guess.
Jennifer Huang.
Dorsey Johnson.
Karen Ward.
Gwen Thompson.
Morris Rami.
Quentin Blanton. And one more thing, too. I noticed at the bottom it says student at George Fox, and that's not accurate. That's my alma mater, but okay.
And can you, I'm sorry, can you send me your title, Quentin? Can you send me the proper title?
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. We'll go directly to our meeting minute approval with co-chair Gwen Thompson.
Hello, everyone. Let's take a few minutes to review the minutes. Please be sure to mark off anything that you think is necessary of bringing to the group's attention again, as well as any corrections. Thank you.
Thank you.
Another minute or so. Raise your hand, please, if you need a little more time. Okay. All right, it looks like everyone's had a chance to review the minutes. Is there any discussion on any items? Okay.
So, and I don't know if it's going to be discussed later today, but I was wondering if we could hear an update to the ADU program and where the funding ended up, and also the, it says here that the Housing Committee will be considering recommendations for increasing including single-family homes into the URA, so I was wondering if they had that meeting yet and what their deliberation was.
Got you. So I believe that Maurice will be providing an update on status of ADU dollars. And then the second one was housing, including single-family homes. I know that Ms. Leslie Goodlow is in the audience. Potentially, she will be able to share an update with us on that if we ask nicely at some point during the meeting. Oh, okay, we'll reference it to Dr. Hall, no worries. Thank you. All right.
Do we just turn our name tag up like this when we have a question? Okay.
Sure.
I was looking at the part where it says,
Quentin, I need you to turn your mic on.
I'm sorry. I was looking at
The other way. Press-
okay. I was looking at the part where it says Fawn gave an example of how initiative is still not connected to African American and Black community that is present. So I was wondering, like, what kind of initiatives or moves have we made to make sure that this project is, in fact, connected to the African American community that was displaced?
Great point. I will make a note of that and get back to you on that. Fawn is in the audience tonight, fortunately, but I don't believe that you'll need to speak to her about it, but I'll definitely give you an update personally.
So Fawn.
Fawn. Raise your hand, Fawn.
Okay.
Yeah, with Stowe Business District.
Okay.
Yes. Could everyone hear Quentin's question? No, the audience couldn't hear your question.
Oh, I was referring to a portion in the last meeting's notes that said Fawn gave an example of how Northeast Initiative is still not connected to African American and Black community that is present. So I was asking what kind of moves or initiatives have been made to make sure that it is connected specifically to the African American Black population in Portland.
And so for the purpose of our audience, as well as our members, that's a pretty big question, and I think it is deserving of conversation, and I would like to have a conversation with Quentin personally. I recall Fawn's note about that. I've also had conversations with Kim Moreland about it. I think it is something that we're all interested in, and I think, Quentin, it'd be great for you and I to pick up on that discussion, and it will require further discussion afterwards.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay?
Does that mean that the rest of the group will not be part of that discussion?
It means that the discussion is an extended discussion. So to be fair, Fawn's point was that the work that we're doing in many other communities is very directly connected. She used Cully as an example. People in the Cully neighborhood are oriented towards a demographic, and they understand that the work that's done on behalf of Prosper Portland is directly for a demographic in that neighborhood. She does not believe personally that Northeast CDI, the work that we're doing, is considered to be work directly for African Americans, and the African American community here was her statement. I think that that's really important. We want that message to get out. Our navigator telling us that is really important information for us to receive. That's why we hired them. That's why we have a navigator, and I think we need to explore that. So that's the reason why I think I wanted to table the conversation with Quentin, and the reason why I think it's important for us to continue that discussion. Fair? All right. Any more discussion on the minutes? Do we have a motion for approving the minutes? Yeah. Jennifer made a motion to
Yes,
approve minutes,
approved.
and Dorsey has seconded. All in favor, please raise your green card. Okay, minutes approved.
Thank you very much. We will move to the next item. Got an update from Kimberly.
Good evening. Before I do the update, I just wanted to thank everyone who came out to the celebration. Really appreciated your participation, and I hope you found that it was fun and that you felt appreciated. I also wanted to let you know that I put a packet of collateral marketing materials for the North CDI, and as ambassadors, I hope that you will spread the word about the initiative. We just kind of, we introduced collateral at our celebration, and I really would appreciate if you share those with family and friends and those that you encounter. We wanted to make a special recognition to two of our board committee members who will be leaving the committee, and this would have been their last meeting, but they're not here yet. But we'd just like to recognize Alicia Posey and Oscar Arana, and their leadership has been very significant to the development of this committee, and to the Alicia in particular was our first co-chair, and she was a wonderful thought partner and influenced the direction of the committee in several ways. So hopefully she'll come tonight and we can recognize her for her leadership as well as Oscar. At this time, Diana, can you pull up the PowerPoint slide that has the key findings? I'd like to turn your attention to this document. If you can just review this document for a minute. I'll give you a couple of minutes to look at that. They do was often. I don't know if they picked. You will notice that I made a few changes to this document. I added a section that identified the amount that has been changed. I also added the quarterly growth rate that identified a percentage of growth from last quarter. And one of the key findings from this report is that we have dispersed a total of $7,625,000 with the total amount awarded, and it represents a quarterly growth. We also dispersed $3,910,000, which represents a 34% quarterly growth. And we served 103 clients, which represents a 9% quarterly growth. The numbers, especially the disbursement numbers, showing that we are getting the money out the door. We increased that amount by 34%. And just to explain to the audience, the awarded amount is when a client received notice that they have received a PIP grant or a community livability grant. The dispersed amount is the actual dollars that go out the door. And sometimes, often, it's a delay between the time you get awarded to the time that the project is actually completed. And so while those numbers may seem a little underwhelming, it represents that we actually disperse these numbers to individual property owners, homeowners, and nonprofits. And in the past, our urban renewal funds went to large-scale development or infrastructure projects like the light rail. And so within the last 2 years, we have dispersed roughly $8 million, or awarded $8 million to individual property owners, homeowners, and business owners, and nonprofit organizations. And I just wanted to also note that there is a negative $100,000 for home ownership, and that's due to one of the Portland Housing Bureau clients who could not find a home within interstate to use the down payment assistance program, and so they did not move forward in the program. Are there any questions?
On this part right here on the report, expand home repair program, what exactly does that mean? Like, how is it being expanded, or what's the expansion?
What, can you say that again, Quentin? You're asking? That was part of our effort to reach homeowners who are within the 80 to 120% AMI. PHB home repair program typically is for those under 80% AMI. And so we expanded the program to include the middle income because during our community outreach, when we developed the action plan, we heard that there wasn't a lot of programs for middle income. So that's where the expanding comes from.
Thank you.
I notice you have, it's listed, it's well-written and everything, but can you tell, does this also reflect the ratio people who have access to this?
No, it doesn't.
That's not an issue with here?
And that's a good question.
What groups, is there like a certain percentage of people who have more access than others racially?
You know, I forgot to bring the racial data. We do have kind of a graphic showing who has access to dollars. I'll send that out to you guys tomorrow. I forgot to bring that. But I do want to draw your attention to this document, and it's a list of all those who have received either a PIP grant or a loan or a community livability grant.
Okay.
And we only share that with the Oversight Committee because of only because it's sensitive information, and if you want a copy, you can, but we like to protect the privacy of our clients. So, but this information provides a list of all those, and I will share that racial data with you tomorrow.
Any other questions, Shanisha?
No, that's about.
Okay, thank you, Gwen.
Yes, thank you. Kim, I think you touched on this. For clients served, let's just go with Gold 2. There's 26 clients that have been served out of the 40, so that looks like a really good ratio considering we're at year 3 out of a 5-year plan, so good numbers there. However, I'm really interested in knowing who the 26 participants are that have been served. So you're saying that they are on this document?
They should be on, yeah, they are on.
So I believe one of them is Abraham's Fabric, and it's not on Goal 2, it's on Goal 1. But that's okay, I'll have a chance to look through this tonight and then circle back to ensure that we have accurate data.
Sometimes, if it's for property development as opposed to a business owner, sometimes the PIP serves both property owners and business owners. And so if you're a property owner, then you're part of Goal 1, and if you're a business owner, and you receive a PIP grant, we put you under Goal 2. So
Okay, so I'll have time to review this, and we could talk about it more as well. But I do understand what your point is. The other question I had is future programming. You show future programming for Goal 3 to promote accessory dwelling units. You show future programming for the Cultural Business Hub and affordable commercial space. So I guess my question is, how do you feel the development is going currently for that future programming, and if we've actually taken any steps for the affordable commercial space future programming to date?
Great question. Prosper Portland in the process of developing that program. We hired a project manager who in charge of developing the policy and the procedures to implement that program. And we can actually invite Christine to come and talk about that program.
That would be great.
So we are moving towards it, but it hasn't been finalized. Myra, do you want to speak to that, or?
Hi.
I'm sorry to put you on.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Arla with Prosper Portland, Director of Equity Governance and Communications. So yes, as Kimberly mentioned, Christine Velasquez is leading the implementation of the Commercial Affordability Program, and so she is developing the strategies and approaches for all the developments that our agency has and will have around commercial affordability. So it's in the beginning stages, but I think, as Kimberly suggested, having her come and share where she is in the process and the engagement she's gone through both internally and externally, I think will be great. Christine Velasquez.
And so that will be our January meeting?
Yes, she could. She would love to come and talk about where they are and how they're proceeding.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Myra.
Yes, I do. My question is, I know the previous documents you've listed the amount that each individual or business received. Is there a way that we can get it on this document so it's all in one place?
I'm sorry, Dorsey, I was having a hard time listening, hearing what you were saying. But I can update this to provide the amount. And the amounts have not changed. It's typically around $40,000 to $50,000. But the PIP grant in particular, which represents the majority of the investment, is total of $75,000. But we find in that not $75,000 is not always, people does not always do the maximum of $75,000, so we're seeing a $40,000 to $50,000 average. But I will send you a revised one with the amount.
And also for I was talking about the PIP earlier, so thank you. And also for the amount that's awarded, is it like per person or per business? Because you have, like, on the applicant side, you have there's a couple, like, repeat names, but, I don't know.
For example, Bernie Foster right at the top appears twice.
And then on one section, the previous grant, it says, like the scanner, yes, he received, he received a previous grant, but then underneath, for the funeral home, no, he hasn't received a previous grant. So when I'm thinking about Bernie, he has, but, you know, the company hasn't, so that's kind of misleading.
I'm trying to get an understanding, trying to understand what you're.
About Bernie Foster.
That previous grant was identified for the building, not the person. So the scanner has received a previous grant before, but the Terry Funeral Home did not. Yeah. I'm having a difficult time. If you use the mic, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, no,
No, but I do want to clarify. The scanner was part of our original DOS program, and so that's why he received a previous grant under the DOS program. And right now, it's one person or one property, and as we learned earlier, much earlier, that Bernie he did receive 2 grants. Under our new policy, he would not be able to. Did that make sense? Yeah.
Quentin, did you have a question?
I'm looking at this, and I was slightly confused about what exactly this paperwork is supposed to represent. Is it the number of people that you've given grants to or that have been awarded to different people?
These are all the people that receive grants or they're all the people that we have invested in with $7,625,000. And so this list represents everyone we have served to date.
Okay.
And also I wanted to say, too, the amounts are available. It's just, it was very difficult to print this form out, so you do have the amount on the last 2 pages. I apologize for that. I was trying to figure out a way that you could print this out to show all the data that I wanted to.
And then one more question for you. I kind of was thinking earlier too, I remember at the meeting we had last week, or the gathering rather, I remember somebody stating that the purpose of this project is to kind of be of some type of redress to the African American community for Prosper Portland's complicity in the displacement.
You're absolutely right, but as a public agency, we cannot just invest all our funds in one population. And this was addressed even during our community forum when we developed the action plan, and the direction we received from our legal department with that. We can say that our priority population is African American, but we have to serve other people of color. And in the way that our criteria, which is listed on the last page of the action plan, we prioritize African Americans, people of color, and long-term property owners who have lived in the area prior to 2000, and that was the inception of the North-Northeast Action Plan. So we do have criteria where African Americans are prioritized, but as a public agency, we cannot say that we're giving money to one population group. And that's the direction that we have received from our legal team.
Oh, okay. It just was a little bit curious to me because, you know, there was something that was specific that was done to a certain population. So this fix has to be specific, and it's like you're kind of competing for a nugget. So you're really only like $32 million. So you're only getting like a nugget of a nugget. So that just doesn't seem like, there's even white people on here too. And I don't recall that they were ever targeted for urban renewal or different things like that, so.
Yeah, and the white people who are on the list are long-term property owners. They lived in the area prior to 2000.
Oh, okay. Is there,
I'm wondering about the status of a centralized location for our documents. I know we've talked about it a couple of times. I believe several of these are repeats with no updates. And I just think it would benefit the committee to have a centralized location so that we can continue to educate ourselves about recipients, the names of individuals, how much they're receiving, and other questions similar to that.
And we do have a Google Drive that we have sent the link some time ago, but we need to refresh that link. And one of the things that we're finding with the Google Drive that not everyone can access the link for some reason, even though you don't need Google Gmail account to access the link. But Diana and Malaya and I will work on that.
Great, if you could send us all a new link with some encouragement that we also look at it, that would be great.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of comment on what everyone else has said that I think would be helpful for this document, and that is actually to have the percentage utilization per race. And so if that could be identified, the grant amount and whether there's repeats on the grant. So if there's multiple people going back to see the total amount, because we want to make sure that we're casting a wide net. The amount that has been utilized, I know there's some that's been committed, but the amount that's been utilized on projects and the ones that have not, you know, where are they in their progression of the project? And so I think that's kind of what I've heard, and so I think being able to have it on one document would be excellent and probably helpful for this committee.
Thank you, Maurice. We actually do have that. It's in this document, but it's not, obviously it's not very evident. So we'll make sure that you have that information and the race data. We have it available, so we'll make sure that you get that. And I'll try to create a document that kind of shows the amount dispersed actually is the amount that was actually used, and we have that information, so we'll send that to you.
Thank you, Quentin.
I was just wondering if there was anybody that I could talk to about this stuff, specifically some of my concerns, because our community is so poor and wealthless. It's kind of difficult for them to there's other communities that can navigate this better than the African American community, so I'm just wondering if there was anybody that I could kind of express my concerns to and some of the things that I've brought up tonight.
You know, we can talk offline and see who's the best person, but I also think maybe it might be a topic for the work session that we'll be talking about soon. But and so you can also kind of get the history of where we are today and some of the legal parameters that we have to kind of contend with. So yeah, I would love to talk to you about that.
Thank you, sir. Name tag, Anne Marie.
You know, just piggybacking onto that comment, I mean, I believe that we should try to make it fast, accurate, and easy. You know, and one of the things that we're doing is because it's not those three things. There are people that have been able to master the ability to propose and receive those funds, and there are the others that are left out. And so I think what our committee is hopefully looking at trying to do is say, are we creating unintentional barriers, and can we remove those barriers? And I think that looking at it going forward is with that approach as far as can we make it fast, accurate, and easy. And I think if we can do that, we'll have greater success.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. For me, I'm kind of need a little bit of an update to see when we're talking about this and distribution of access, of funds and access. This is not about the boundary lines anymore, right? That has nothing to do with the boundaries. That's still the same, right? Okay. Are the boundaries still, the people who have access still linked to a particular boundary system still? And so that would mean that those corridor boundaries are not going to be changed at any particular time, not for this funding.
November. That was my question earlier. I think the housing committee, per our meeting minutes, is supposed to make deliberate on it in November, right?
Yeah, you're right about that, and we are in the process of we're looking, mapping and looking at different boundaries and to kind of get an idea of how many homeowners within 50, 100, 10 feet from the boundary, and looking at how much land area is within those boundaries, because we only have roughly 280 acres left in the urban renewal area, so we have to come up with a process that's fair to everyone, and also preserve, the expansion for other projects. It's a significant amendment that is very, so we have to be very careful and transparent about how we bring other properties in. But we are in the process of looking at that.
Good. I just want to, I'm here to be that thorn in your side.
I know this. I know.
So, what is the mapping process? Are you hiring someone to conduct the research?
So we have in-house.
Okay, all right.
Well, thank you. I think the next section, all minds are clear on that. The next section here on our agenda is the work session. Tentative date for December. Do you need to talk any more about that?
Or, yeah, Diana's got to come up.
Hi, everyone. I'm Diana. I'm Kim's project intern, helping out. I've seen you all around a little bit. I was here at the last meeting. So I'm the fun person who gets to ask about all of your schedules and the fun scheduling that comes along with that. So just a reminder, we have our new member onboarding coming up next Tuesday. So we're going to be welcoming our new members and kind of explaining the structure, going over some guidelines around that. So that's next Tuesday, November 19th. I believe you all have the handout. That will be at the Prosper Portland offices downtown. There will be some good food. It'll be a nice little gathering. And then we do have a tentative date scheduled for our work session in December. So it would be nice if we could figure out tonight if everyone's available to attend that December 11th work session. And then we also think it would be great if we could choose our next regular Oversight Committee meeting in January. Because of holiday closures and whatnot, the first week of January, the project working group for Williams-Russell will be meeting on the first, will not be meeting on the first Wednesday, and they'll instead be meeting on the second Wednesday of January 8th. So we're basically looking to reschedule our meetings so that it doesn't overlap with the Williams-Russell project working group meeting. So there's 3 dates listed: January 7th, January 9th, and January 15th. And we would love if we could go ahead and get a date settled and everybody check their availability to see which date would work the best for our next regular meeting.
Are you hoping to find out right now, or are you hoping to find out tonight, or so you're asking people to take a look at your calendars if you have access to them? Who has access to a calendar? Okay, who else would need to get back to?
Definitely not Tuesday.
Yeah.
No Tuesdays.
What about December 11th for the work session?
It's a Wednesday.
For the work session.
Okay, perfect. So you'd have to look, someone have to examine, get back to regarding, so one item at a time. Let's do one item at a time. December 11th, does anybody know tonight, or they'll need to get back to tomorrow? In fact, why don't we do this, if this works? Is it sufficient if everyone responds to 2 options via email? Perfect. So we will do it that way, Diana.
Great. I'll send out an email with the same options, which is a lot easier than sending out a big poll. So
Yes.
with the Tuesday one off. So Thursday, January 9th or Wednesday, January 15th. So we can choose between that one, and then we'll also get confirmation of if anybody is unavailable for the December 11th work session.
Yeah. Well, there's a big community event on the 9th of January at this facility in the community room, so the 9th would not.
So the 15th? So the 15th? The 15th? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Won't be here on the 15th of January. I have a Christmas event. I'm a pastor, so there's lots of activities in December.
Yep.
No, the 15th of
When? Comment?
January.
Just a quick comment,
Yeah.
just so that the committee is aware that the work session is a very, very important meeting for the committee. So I really hope that we can do our very best to come up with a date where we can all be there. Just want to emphasize that.
Is the work session, it says review and make a recommendation? I would caution against having, our first joint meeting together also be the meeting where we make a motion on anything. It doesn't play out well, and I don't think it's wise. So if we could potentially rethink that, that would be great.
Karis?
Okay. I was just going to suggest that we not have another meeting in December. December is, it's going to be impossible for us to find a date that everyone, if we're already, for two dates in December, that's going to be pretty challenging. So most boards actually don't meet in the month of December. No, it would be, the January one.
Yeah.
Okay. So it would just be, so we would not have a regular meeting in December, we would just have the joint session? Okay, okay. Okay, I thought we were trying to find 2.
No.
Yeah, remember the broader community, it was decided to go every other month, so every odd month is when the collective group meets. Gwen? Karis?
And extending on that, our January meeting will, I think, be the inception of new members, as well as we have 2 additional new members coming. And then we also will be having official elections at that time, right? So I guess for the committee, what that means to us is that we won't be doing our normal work during that time. Again, I just really want to emphasize, if you can at all, please make the December work session.
The proposed date is December 11th. Any other comment regarding that, Maurice?
I just wanted to confirm that there's going to be no decisions made on December 11th, if I understood Jennifer's concerns. Is that correct? Yes. I'm looking for Prosper, that we will make no decisions. So if that could be in the minutes.
When?
My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, is that the work session was initially decided so that this committee could have an opportunity to come together to discuss the recommendations. There was never an opportunity for us to actually do that. And so creatively, we were looking for ways to pull the committee together on an off month
have a work session, and I believe Kim needed to check with legal just to see if we could do that. Can you spend a couple minutes just talking about the process and where that started from?
Sure. It was determined by legal that we could not have a closed meeting. There was a request to have the Oversight Committee come together and discuss this among themselves without staff or a public presence, but we cannot, that is not, that violates public meeting laws. So what we can do is have a work session. The public is invited to listen and hear the discussion, and only comment unless if you allow them to have public comments, but you have to invite the public to listen and to hear the discussion. And the topics of the work session is response to a survey about what success looked like for Oversight Committee member, also to make a recommendation about increasing the maximum indebtedness, and to make a decision about amending the interstate corridor urban renewal boundary to include the Williams and Russell property. And so it is intended, say that again? So it is intended to make a decision at the work session.
Kim, I think what we're hearing, and forgive me, committee, I just need to belabor this point so that we all end up on the same place, is that the committee understands the purpose of the meeting, but not everyone is in agreement that that provides sufficient time to actually make a recommendation or respond to a recommendation on either of the two issues that we have confronting us. So one is maximum indebtedness. The other one is the expansion of the ICURA for the purpose of the Russell Williams property, right? So we know that we've got those two that we're looking at, and just based on the nods around the table, the committee is not feeling like that provides sufficient time. Can you please speak to how do you think that this committee could come to a point where we could provide feedback?
I was really hoping that at the work session we could have Bryson Davis and Lakeisha Elliott come and discuss the reason why they want to be included into the interstate corridor, and also have someone from the Portland Housing Build, Leslie Goodlow and her other colleagues, come and discuss why the maximum indebtedness is, why they want to increase the maximum indebtedness. And we have heard several presentations about the maximum indebtedness and the Williams-Russell project. And so I think we have plenty of opportunity to learn about the project, and I think it's a time that we have to make a decision. And we will, and it's important and imperative that we make a recommendation, because they want to move forward with these decisions. And we want to make a decision before they go to the board to approve these decisions. So I think it's time, and I think we could provide you with more information prior to the meeting, but we have to make a decision, because I'm not sure how long they're going to wait for the North CDI. And we have been given several opportunities to learn more.
Quentin, Maurice, and then Karis.
So when it comes down to make the decisions about incorporating the property on William and Russell into the URA, as well as increasing the maximum indebtedness, how will that decision be made? Like, will it be a process where it's kind of like we vote and whoever the majority wins, or?
You want to respond? Thank you. and Quentin, because you're a new member, you're not familiar with our decision-making matrix, but the process is we make a preliminary recommendation, and that recommendation is shared with Kimberly Branham, the Executive Director of Prosper Portland, and then she shares that with Prosper Portland Commissioners, and there's a special meeting that's going to be held to discuss these two issues. I'm not sure if they're going to be on the same day, but when it comes to any decisions that involve housing and economic development, they're going to receive the preliminary recommendation from North CDI, and then they'll receive a preliminary recommendation from the Northeast Housing Strategy Oversight Committee. So in the case of increasing the maximum indebtedness, there's going to be a shared preliminary recommendation with Northeast CDI and the Oversight Committee.
Just point of reference, and just to bring us back to where we are in our agenda, if you look at your timeline, we are actually 10 minutes after 7, and we've still got quite a bit to go. So just to bring that to your attention. We may need to readjust what is scheduled for tonight.
One of the things I would ask that hopefully they can provide is a timeline on when they actually need decisions made. So if we can get, on both issues, what they view as a timeline for when the drop, date and when we have to respond. The other thing that, because, this is something that I know that you might not be able to answer, but hopefully Prosper's legal counsel can, is that we're not a decision-making body. So a lot of the ORS, because we're an advisory body, my understanding is that a lot of the public meeting laws don't necessarily pertain because we're just given advice. We aren't a decision-making body, which then follows under. So if we can get some clarification from legal counsel on whether or not my assumption's correct or incorrect, that would be great.
Thank you. Karis?
So this goes along with the last two questions. When is the next Prosper Portland board meeting?
Barbara, do you happen to know?
Okay, because I think that will affect, or give us more of a timeline that we can come up with, because I think that we need to come up with our own timeline, not depend on them to give us information to make the decision that we need to make a recommendation. So once we know when that next board meeting is, then we can give ourselves a deadline to when we need to make a decision.
I can talk to our staff to find out when they plan to go to the board with this decision, and it's probably in January or February.
Excellent. Great discussion. Very important. Very important. There is an item that we did not address under number 3, which is elections.
I just want to remind everyone that our wonderful co-chair's term will be ending in December, so we'll be looking for new co-chairs. And in the past, co-chairs only, according to our project charter, only serve for 1 year. And so I would like for those who are considering, who would like to be our new co-chairs, to please send me an email, let me know. And we have elections in January. If there is no one who's interested in being a co-chair, then we need to make some decisions about how we move forward. So please send me an email within the next couple of weeks, letting me know if you have an interest in serving as a co-chair. Also, I want you to be mindful of the responsibility that's included in the co-chair role, and we really look forward to the leadership opportunities for each of our Oversight Committee members. And like the co-chairs before, Maurice and Gwen have done an amazing job moving the initiative forward, and we would love to give an opportunity for others to step in that role. So I would like to know by a work session because I would like to be able to prepare a ballot for the January meeting. So please let me know.
Thank you very much. Gwen, item number 4, we've kind of talked about, and that
Yes.
was what success looks like. We're talking about the work session itself and the necessity of it. Is there anything, do you think, that we still need to nail down regarding that?
No, I sent out an email of everyone would be sure to check your email, make sure that you received the survey. I've provided, I believe, 2 weeks? 2 weeks to answer 15 questions or any of those questions that you would be interested in answering. That would be wonderful. Thank you.
So question to co-chairs and committee. We are now at 15 after 7. And so we're technically at the time where we had planned to be ending the report outs and then dealing with old business. As you can tell, unless we are going to extend the meeting tonight, we're not going to have time to get through everything. How would you like to proceed?
Yeah.
We can go ahead and extend the meeting.
Mostly because there's not a lot to share. So let's just assume that we can get through the agenda.
Perfect. Just wanted to call it to our attention. Wonderful. We will move then to section 5, or number 5, and subcommittee report outs, beginning with property ownership and redevelopment.
You got this? No, I'm just teasing you. And so that's our goal number 1. Since last reported, Prosper is actually awarded.
Thanks, sir.
How's that?
Much better.
Okay, great. So there have been 4 PIP grants awarded. 2 of them are renovations. The other 2 are owner-occupied multifamily. There should be a slide up on the screen showing those properties. So we are moving forward. One of the things I do like about this is that we are casting a wider net, and yeah, so we are actually hitting those people that actually need the help. That's all I have on. If there's any questions on that. I'm going to jump to 2.
Shanisha.
My question's about, and a kind of an awareness campaign as to how does people know that they have access? Is that, this might be just for me, because you guys might already have something that's extended that lets people know. How do people know that there is the availability of funding and access to certain things?
How do they have access to our program?
Yeah, how do you get that message out? Is it the new people who you have going out, the navigators?
We're using our navigators. A lot of it's word of mouth. But you raise an interesting point. We do need to start tracking how people find out about Prosper Portland. And we will, that's something that we discussed about adding it to our application so that we can have an idea of our pipeline and how they access our pipeline.
I was curious. I went to the NAOP breakfast earlier today, and I was just wondering, where does commercial real estate sort of come in to play? Like, where is that at in this project? And, like, what are the, if you could just show me where that is.
In goal 1 and 3. Oh, yes, and also goal 2, I'm sorry, for support business growth.
And so these are like the numbers that have been dispersed and stuff, sort of the quantifiables around it.
Goal 1 is promote property ownership. So that, and those tools and implementation tools that we use for the property development are often invested in commercial property. And as well as goal 2, which is promote or support business growth and development, we utilize the PIP grant to help owners of commercial property. And you can also, in goal 5, large-scale commercial development will be supported by our commercial property redevelopment loans for like large-scale development. And so those are the, if you go to the, if you read the action plan, you would go 1, 2, and 5, kind of outline all the tools that property owners and business owners and developers have at the resources that we provide for them.
Gwen, comment, question?
I have a question for Quentin. Hello. Do you have a special interest in commercial property? And if so, we are looking for new members for committee with goal 2.
Well, for me, I kind of wanted to know how it intersects with opportunity zones. That was something that was of interest to me. So yes, I am very much interested.
Great, I'll add it to our conversation list. All right.
Cool.
Welcome as a new committee member. We can move forward then and to the next item, which is business ownership and growth, and that is you, Gwen. If you'd put your name tag down, please.
Goal 2, right? Okay. If I could ask Sue to please join us. Thank you so much. Good evening. So committee, this is Sue Lewis, and you met her last time at a few of our other meetings, and she will introduce herself, and also, Sue and I met yesterday. Yes, yesterday. I was interested in finding out, well, backing up a little bit, I'm interested in putting names to numbers. And so I asked Sue to meet with me and tell me a bit about the businesses that are receiving the dollars, and Sue is going to address that today.
Yeah, great. So, good evening. My name is Sue Lewis, and I manage our Prosperity Investment Program, and that's specifically for for-profit businesses, either the property ownership, which is associated with Goal 1, or tenant for businesses, business ownership, and that's for like tenant improvements. And I'm excited that since the last report, we've awarded 2 grants, and one is to Hale Snail, who are actually have been awarded and we'll start improvements here shortly. They're over off of Interstate, and what they will be doing is specializing in, it's going to be a cafe alongside an adjacent building. I think there's some food carts in the back, and they will specialize in vegan cinnamon roll and provide community space and a safe environment for the LGBT community. And then the other business that we have awarded, we have not funded it yet because we're waiting for project bids to come in, is for Misty Morning Cafe. And they are looking to specialize in Hawaiian roasted coffee. So the gal is from Hawaii, Pacific Islander, and has a strong interest in this area. So those are our 2 awarded businesses. So these will be for tenant improvements. And as Kim talked about earlier, the Prosperity Investment Program awards up to a maximum of $75,000 towards tenant improvements or physical improvements to buildings, and it has a 75-25 match. So the grant provides 75%, and then the client provides 25% match. So we'll keep you posted on future awards.
Thank you so much, Sue.
You're welcome.
Don't leave yet. So to the committee. Thank you. Going back to this document here that Kim has provided us, we can see that for Goal 2, we have served 26 clients out of 40. I just want to express a little bit of concern that I have that out of this 26, it doesn't have a high representation, is my understanding of African-American businesses at this moment. I stand corrected if I'm shown differently, but
it's just to be noted that I have some concern. In addition to working with our navigators to identify African-American businesses in this community, that we can ensure they have the information about the PIP program, both loan and grant, right? I just think that it will serve us very well to have our nose to the grindstone or to the ground. Clearly, if it was easy for Prosper Portland to identify African-American businesses, I believe that they would. That it means that it's not so easy, and I just think we need to double up on our efforts.
Yeah, and I can provide a percentage to you of the breakdown for the PIP grant. I can't say definitively whether it's business ownership or property ownership, but a good portion, pretty much 95% of the grants have been to people of color. And then within that, the breakdown between there's African American, African immigrant, and other persons of color is the breakdown of that. But I don't have the exact percentages, but I'd be happy to provide it for you.
Thank you, Sue.
Sure, you're welcome.
Any questions for Sue from the committee? No?
Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening. I was recently reading an article in the Portland Business Journal where they were talking about Umpqua Bank and Wells Fargo and how black-owned businesses are not getting those SBA loans. I think Umpqua Bank is the largest bank in Oregon, and they only awarded one SBA loan to a small African-American owned business over 10 years. So for me, kind of looking at this, I just wonder, are you guys taking into account, that factor that banks discriminate against African-American institutions and business owners, and are you taking into consideration what kind of businesses are needed in our community? Because these two things, like you said that one of them was a bakery and the other was a coffee shop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those are the two. What I could do is we are gathering a list of the business sector types, and I can give you a list of what those business sectors have been that have been awarded grants. My portfolio is in the grant program, not the loan program. But what we have devised because of the North-Northeast, the CDI, is within that we developed a pilot program for a loan to be able to cover that 25% match so that the grant recipient doesn't necessarily have to have those funds in their bank. They can apply for a loan through Prosper Portland to get those funds.
Is there any way that you can provide an aggregation of that data, like what kind of business it was, the person that got it, and what, the different things I
we
asked
can provide the demographics and the type of business sector that was, what that business falls within the national, there's a acronym, NICS, it's a national for payroll and such, and so we've got that. In fact, I don't know if Malia was introduced earlier. Malia went through all of our completed projects and has identified those, and so I need to break those down into a percentage and be happy to get that for you.
And I also want to add that the PIP maximum of $75,000 is just for the interstate corridor. The other URAs is 50% match, and we did that intentionally to kind of reach more African Americans.
Yeah, that's right. So in all of our other URAs, as Kim said, TIF districts, it's a maximum of 50,000, but within interstate, it is 75,000. And in the other geographical areas, it's a 50-50 match, but within interstate, it's a 75-25 match. And that was a direct result of the North-Northeast CDI plan and all the workshops that were done up to that.
Thank you very much. Karis, you put your... Okay, great. Maurice?
And I think what you're hearing here is a lot of what our committee's looking for is data drives our decisions, right? And so we need that data. and we are having a focus on African Americans. That means that some things will be out of focus or out of sight, so we also have to recognize that. So I think it would be helpful, the more data we can get, the better off we are to create a roadmap so that we can have a greater utilization, because I think everyone here wants that to be the outcomes. And so the more data we receive, the better off we're going to be in order to create that roadmap to make sure that our recommendations are hitting the populations that we're hoping to hit.
Thank you very much. Shanisha.
And I agree with Maurice when he talks about data, but I'm also looking at qualifiers. You know, what are the qualifiers that allows them to be able to get those funds? You know, is that something that could be listed? You know, what are the qualifiers that allow, what percentage that you, okay, the percentages that shows that you qualify for these particular things? Is that, you know, you have to be beyond a certain amount of income? Do you have to be, what are the qualifiers?
There's several things that are qualifiers, and first we have a financial request application, and so they have to fall within the geographic area of the TIF district, the interstate area. And then we do not ask for a specifically for their tax records to see if they meet any type of income level, but they cannot have more than 3 locations. It cannot be a franchise, a national franchise. The other things is that the property taxes have to be current. They have to have a state business license, and they need to have a City of Portland business license. And that's because specifically the Prosperity Investment Program is for commercial businesses or commercial property owners.
Does that include ADUs now?
No, well, an ADU is in a special category because generally they are in residential areas, and so they would not necessarily qualify. It would not qualify for a PIP program, but my understanding is that ADUs will be discussed in a different goal and a potential pilot project that they'll talk about later.
They're coming up.
They are?
ADUs, yeah.
Okay.
That's a good, that could be a very good segue.
You guys planned that.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Quentin, we'll let you be the last one on this.
Oh, okay. Just to touch on what you said last, you said that you guys don't check like the business's income or anything like that, or is it the person, is it the individual's income or like the business's income? What Chonisha said earlier, what's the criterion?
Well, on the application, it does talk about, like, but for this grant, what would you do? And so we do look at to see, like, how is this grant going to help the business owner to be able to achieve the goals by increasing, expanding their services, or taking vacant spaces and making them creative open spaces, a useful, functional business. And so one of the ways that we look at the income, I would say not income total, but, you know, like, you can't have more than 3 businesses. Once you have had more than 3 locations, then you're successful, right? And so you don't need the grant program. So we look at it, that's a question on one of the applications.
Okay. We can circle back.
For a loan does look at income. It does need to look at 2 years' worth of tax returns.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
We're going to move to the next item then, home ownership in Maurice. Quentin, your name tag, please, sir. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Actually, we had our subcommittee, and I'd like to thank both Hacienda and PHB for attending. Those were extremely helpful, so I thanks for them for sharing their information. One of the packets that you guys have, and oh, sorry, I apologize. One of the packets that you guys have is this right here. So Hacienda did a presentation. We've had this before with the Guild, and I recognize that we had voted earlier for Prosper to retain the ADU funds from PHP. and that this committee voted to hold those funds, but without necessarily the commitment to it going back to the ADU program. But it's still part of our committee, so we still talk about it. So one of the things that prior, we did have the Guild come and they talked about an ADU program. I think Hacienda did an excellent job here in kind of going through in our committee, an extremely detailed and precise way to deliver on the ADU program, looking at, and feel free to chime in if I skip anything, but how to make sure that as they build these ADUs, potentially one of the theories is that you have elderly people living in homes that they might want to downsize into the ADU. They also have children, independents that they might want to be able to rent this out to. And they also said that even if they just wanted to have someone else service it, then there could be a third party that does that. And so the document that you have, I don't think that is this the full document right here? It seems a little light.
And Kate is willing to provide a presentation if
Okay.
you want to learn more. I don't know if time would allow it, but she is prepared to talk about the program if you would like her to.
Yeah. And so what I want to do is just give you a few minutes to look through the document. And if you have any questions on it, we could always bring them. They are up in the audience today, so we can bring them up, and they could also talk a little bit about it. But I would say that our subcommittee was really impressed on the thoroughness of how they presented and just a different thought process that they had thought through to make sure that it's deliverable. And one of the questions that we've asked is for them to be able to service African-American homeowners. We did that report early on that showed those, I think, over 1,000 African-American homeowners within the URA. And so they had kind of identified that is their focus point. So I feel like we can deliver on our mission. Go ahead.
You said they had data referencing 1,000 Black homeowners in the URA?
And so our previous study that we did with the Bureau of Sustainability, they showed over 2,400 African-American homeowners. And out of that, I believe there was 1,000 that were homeowners and the rest were renters. And so they didn't show that data, but what I said is we know that there's over 1,000 African-American homeowners. So I apologize. Yeah, the different study that was previously presented to this group.
I'm wondering, since we have them here, if we wouldn't mind inviting them up as we're reading for the sake of saving some time, since we only have 20 minutes left and they've come here. I would really like to welcome them to the table and to tell me about their experience in creating this information for us while at the same time we take some time to read through it. If that's okay, Maurice.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here. Please take a minute and introduce yourself and tell us about your experience working with Maurice.
Good evening. My name is Kimberly Horner, and I am the Executive Director for the Portland Community Reinvestment Initiative, PCRI, and I was newly hired. July 1 of this year was my start date, but my staff has been working very closely with Kate Allen and Hacienda on this project. So today I'm going to introduce Kate Allen in addition to my staff, Andrea Debman, who is a manager for PCRI, as well as Charles Funches, and they can answer some of the more particulars as we get down into questions about the residents that we serve for PCRI. So in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kate.
Thanks to the committee and to the chairs. We very much appreciated the opportunity. Myself and Rose Ojada, who is the development director for Hacienda Community Development. I'm working as a contract consultant for the 4 organizations who are working together on this project. So PCRI is one of the partners, as well as Hacienda Community Development and Verde in the Cully neighborhood, and Rose Community Development in the Lentz area. These 4 organizations came together a year or so ago, responding to interest coming out of those 3 communities, displacement risk communities, each of the 3 housing organizations being culturally specific organizations, so connected to the communities. This interest in what is an ADU model that could work for our communities. So our sort of launching point was low and modest income homeowners, and the opportunity to work with those homeowners and create both a revenue stream and an asset building opportunity for them, as well as increasing access to affordable rental homes in those same neighborhoods where those are sort of hard to come by. To sort of go very quickly, I would probably turn your attention to this graphic, which kind of gives you the nuts and bolts of what it is we're putting together. So as I'd mentioned, we're working with a modest income homeowner, a homeowner whose income does not exceed 100% of the area median income. We're providing, and we being this group of community-based organizations with deep experience in affordable housing development, property management, and those other services that will help folks be successful. So we're sort of doing wraparound services for that homeowner to help them to create the opportunity for them to decide to put an ADU in their backyard. The 3 components that you're seeing that sort of make this model work, and it's probably important to say that what we're doing right now is a demonstration project. So about a year ago, Meyer Memorial Trust made a grant to these 4 organizations to say, this is a pretty good idea. Why don't you figure out the feasibility, figure out if this will work, and then if your model appears to work, in the 2nd year, go ahead and demonstrate. So our intention in 2020 is to build 10 units, working with the homeowners and our partner organizations. We would have demonstration units in each of the 3 priority communities. So here in Northeast, in the Cully neighborhood, and in Lentz. And through that demonstration, what we hope to be able to do is sort of lift this up as a replicable model so that other development organizations or other builders could take a look at this and say, if we put together these 3 things, we can make more of this happen. So the 3 components really are the ability to secure for that homeowner a small loan. We're estimating about $50,000. That is based, the payments on that loan are coming right off of the rent payments for the unit in the backyard. The second component right there in the middle is a unit that we have designed that we sort of know the costs. So this is a standalone, new construction, small home in the backyard. We have a cost estimate on that unit. It's about a 527 square foot, proper one bedroom unit. The cost of that is about $100,000 to build it. We're putting in additional expenses for site costs and so on, so that the project altogether would not exceed $130,000. And then the third component is to secure a public subsidy of about $70,000. Now, the case we're making is that not only are we creating a band of economic benefits for the homeowner through this asset building, additionally, the model would be what we've sort of tested out is that this would be a stick-built model, so an intentional opportunity for minority-owned businesses in our communities to do that work, also to utilize the workforce development programs, which could be pretty ideally suited. And then the wraparound services are sort of what help that homeowner be successful in securing a monthly income, and at the end of an affordability period of about 15 years, that homeowner would own that unit outright, and they could choose what they did with it from there on. I think I would stop there.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm sure there are a host of questions. So we will begin with Karen. You had yours up first, and then Jennifer.
Hi, I was curious about the size of this model unit. It seems like, from what I've heard about these ADUs, that's a large sort of size. I'm wondering, like, what's the square footage of yard you need to have an ADU that's 527 square foot? It seems large from my knowledge of tiny houses. It seems like 300 is like the top, kind of typical. Seems like you'd have to have a gigantic property in order to have a house this size in your yard.
Right, so the design work that's been done says this fits on a pretty typical Portland lot. It's a 24 by 24, so if you go out and walk your backyard, you could kind of get a sense of what that would be. There's a few other site requirements. One of the things that's probably important to say is, we're to the point where we've got this model together. Our next set of activities are around some homeowner focus groups that would be conducted by the individual housing organizations to kind of get some feedback and questions. But in preparation for that, we've sort of done a site plan that says on most, not all, Portland backyards with the setbacks required and so on, this would fit.
Excellent.
Well, I look forward to seeing this model in person because it still seems large to me.
Yes.
Jennifer. Thanks, Karen. Could you put your name tag down, please? Thank you.
So you said you were working on this project for about a year now?
Can't hear you.
A year in development, roughly?
So we started work around the planning and the sort of feasibility assessment in January of 2019. So in about 9 months' time, we've been able to sort of noodle down on what it needs to take. So that's where we are right now. The last page of that presentation, or close to the end, I got myself all mixed up here, is kind of a timeline on what comes next. That would be page 8, where it says from model to implementation. And that sort of says what we're up to now through the end of the year and into the first of the year, conducting the homeowner focus groups, then moving into connecting with homeowners, helping them do that site assessment, working with them around getting the finance, making some decisions about the design that are within the choice package, and then our plan is to begin building some units in the spring of this year.
Thank you very much. Gwen.
I wrote down 3 questions, but you just drew my attention to from model to implementation. Sorry, I can't explain that. It says that you want to roll this out in fall 2019. Have you started some of the processes on that?
We're sort of in the fall, so the first homeowner focus group will actually happen, I believe, with Hacienda clients out in Cully. We're working with our partners at PCRI to get something scheduled through their contacts and outreach. That has not been scheduled yet.
Okay. So my first question is, this is only for new builds, and so nothing related to refurbishing garages or basements or any of that. Has there been discussion, and was there a reason why that was excluded?
Yeah, in part, and that is, that's feedback that we've gotten a couple of times. The goal here is to create a model and a subsidy stream, which doesn't currently exist. So the resources currently available through Portland Housing Bureau's funding programs don't sort of have an immediately obvious funding stream for this. It's a bit of a hybrid, right? We're benefiting a homeowner and we're creating an affordable rental. So it's a little bit of a new animal. The idea, I think, with Meyer funding it was to say, you all, you community groups, put this together and then take it forward and see if this is something that works for the communities. So, you know, we were pleased to be in conversation with your housing subcommittee about a potential resource to move the program forward in ICURA. This is to move the demonstration forward. Similarly, we would continue to engage local funders, but also at the state level. Oregon Housing and Community Services is a funder. So the idea is if we put together like what's possible, how would we benefit a homeowner and create an affordable rental, then others can replicate it. And we could open that up to doing other kinds of things. For creation of the model, we wanted to keep as much control as we could around the cost.
Makes sense.
And the new build is the easiest way to say we can do this much for $130,000.
Great. Two related questions. What happens if the homeowner sells, moves? What happens to the loan? How's that work?
So there is some similarity to other programs where there is an affordability requirement that sort of continues. So in this case, the new buyer would be required to fulfill the remaining term of that affordability agreement. So they would be buying a home and an income property with a stream of income already built in, and say that sale took place, you know, 5 years into the affordability period, they would be required to fulfill the remaining 10 years.
Related to that, oh, please.
And I was going to mention too that we typically make sure that that's recorded with the county. So all of that information would be recorded with the county. So if there was a transaction, it would be picked up during the close of escrow.
Got you. So essentially it said simply, they can sell it. That means there's really no demographics that go with your program, right? There is? Can somebody tell me about that?
So I guess, well, I know that this is not the subcommittee side, but what they had talked about is doing the focus on African-American homeowners. And so the demographics, as far as when they first start the program, that they're going to, that's their focus point. Now,
That's whose focus point?
that is PCRI, Hacienda, and the organizations that participate within our URA. And so, so with that, now there's no guarantee that the African-American homeowner doesn't sell their home, but even if they do, then it's profitable for them, but the requirements for the ADU stays within the new homeowner. So the homeowner is buying off to this unit still being affordable, regardless who owns the property for 15 years.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
Perfect.
Last question, sorry. Do you already have funding for the demonstration model? Is that the Myers money that you've received, or are you looking for funding for your demonstration models too?
We have the funding that we need to run the program for the demonstration period. What we intentionally are seeking from the public sector is the affordability subsidy, so that $60,000 to $70,000 per unit that goes in and makes that achievable with this model.
Microphone.
I had a couple of questions as well. One of them was, how is this project tied to wealth? Because African-American community has basically been priced out of home ownership. So I would like to know, is this just something that's going to enrich people who are well off or already wealthy? Because you said when they buy the home where an ADU is already located, that they get another stream of income. So I'm just wondering, like, how is this, like, how can, like, poor people, or how will people with limited means, how will they be able to benefit from this?
I might invite Kimberly and her colleagues to speak a little bit about PCRI, the intention of using the groups that are already doing the housing in this community is to be sure that when we're doing outreach to potential homeowners, that the program, that, yeah, the way.
And so we actually have Andrea Debman in the audience that has a whole pipeline of residents that we serve. She is the the manager of resident services, and she is the person that is in charge of getting people ready for home ownership and the like. So we'll be looking at that population and reaching out to them, and they're particularly on the lower to moderate income level, and they are African American individuals. So this is an opportunity for there to be some cash flow from the ADU that is constructed on the property to go back to the homeowner. So that's where we see this as an entrepreneurship type activity for a homeowner to get into really the rental business, supported by PCRI and other organizations to help them through that process. But they would receive approximately $200 a month in income coming off of the rental of that property. So we see that as a way that that person can grow financially, in addition to the increase in their property values with this ADU being built onto it. And again, in 15 years, all these other requirements go away, so they will now have a structure on their property after 15 years that if they decide to sell, they'll receive the appreciation in the property from that.
So the people who move into the ADUs that are already located on people's property, they don't end up owning those homes, or are they just?
No, they are renters, so it's
Okay.
about 527 square feet that we're looking at, and some of our residents and homeowners are simply people that would like to get family members back into these properties as well. So an adult family might want to give up the larger property and move into the back property, the ADU, and, make the rent payment, and then their kids are growing in equity as they start to pay the mortgage on the larger property. So we see it as a win-win and an opportunity to kind of keep families together.
Right. Leisha.
Hi.
Green.
I just have a couple questions. So is the requirements, they're not in this packet, are they your requirements? Are they the city's requirements and the county's requirements?
With regard to the affordability, the partners designed the affordability guidelines. So responding to 100% of median income for the homeowner, was targeting the homeowners that we seem to be encountering who would be interested in this. The 60% of median income from a renter recognizes that this is not necessarily a unit that would be heavily service enriched, a person, a household coming out of homelessness and renting this. This is maybe typical of folks who are already on the affordable housing wait lists of the 3 housing partner organizations.
Okay, so in addition to the covenant, I'm guessing the waivers will be a part of the city's covenant.
Property tax waiver?
The SDC fees.
Yes, yes.
It would be a part of the 10-year covenant that you have to rent it out for 10 years. In addition to making sure that you're renting it out to someone at 60%. AM,
Yeah,
AMI.
so this model would fulfill the ADU specific requirement that you don't use it as a short-term rental.
Okay.
So we've met that just right out the gate.
Mhm.
And then the affordability period is something that, you know, someone would choose, if they're going to do this, they would be making the choice to enter into that kind of an agreement. But those just layer right on top of each other.
So in terms of the different requirements for people that participate in this program, even including, or especially those that would be in this first phase, when will the educational component of the program take place so that they understand their risks and the pros, and also most of the folks that you talk about in the beginning here that have benefited from the ADU programs, I don't want to use my words, so I'll try to read from here. The well-educated white homeowners, they benefit because they are doing short-term rentals, that the return is a higher return, quicker return, that they're able to make their money back very quickly. So I'm wondering, I think it's important that folks who are considering these programs have as much time as possible to consider the pros and the cons and the risk. So that's a comment, but also making I guess my ask would be that those wraparound services include that very sometimes overlooked aspect of what being a landlord looks like, the risk of being a landlord. The city's laws are changing all the time around what you're responsible for. So I just want to make sure, I think we put programs in place and folks don't have the opportunity to truly absorb what they're committing to because it looks good on the surface level.
Part of how this came together really was looking at ways that we could remove barriers that have been keeping folks from being able to do this. So basically creating some pathways to offer this choice to people who might not otherwise be able to do it for whatever.
Sure. Yes, and I'm as a person who is currently in the process of building an ADU, I think that as much time as effort I put into understanding and doing the research, there was still plenty of stuff that I did not understand or have full knowledge about, that if given more time or having other people available to help me fulfill that, I would not have made some of the mistakes that I've made.
We need to talk to you.
So that's why I'm just cautioning and making sure that we have a really rigorous education and on-ramping to folks who might be interested in doing something like this, because I think there are red flags or situations where this would not be desirable.
Janisha? Kimberly, were you going to respond?
Well, I was just going to mention that we've had extensive conversations with Andrea as well as Charles, because we do share the same sentiments, and we want to make sure that the population that's already been put at risk in the past, this does not happen to them again. And we have a commitment from Andrea that she, as well as Charles and some other team members, will do that deep dive to figure out what the potential risks are to our clients before we take them to the next phase. Again, this is a demonstration program, and if we find from PCRI that this does not fit for our residents, it will stop there for us. And I don't know if, Andrea, if you have anything to say with regard to our residents and being able to service them in this regard.
Well, I appreciate your comments, and like Kimberly said, 1,000% on board and feeling the exact same way. And I think we still are working through a lot of the questions that we even have to ensure that any of the homeowners that we are here supporting, this end up being a good situation for them. And that is taking into account all of those things. So we have had some real spirited conversations about what that looks like. And our commitment is to be sure to the best of our ability, that we've done a lot of the research and due diligence to be sure we are not putting our community at risk. The community we are specifically looking at is our homeowners that we currently serve in our homeownership retention program, which primarily serves African American homeowners at 55 plus of age. And many of them have come to us because they are really interested in this. I want to say maybe over a year ago or earlier this year, I'm getting things crossed, PHB attempted to do a similar program and came and did a presentation for our residents. And the interest is still there. People are saying, but how can we do this? And expressing their concerns, expressing their fears, expressing their mistrust, and a number of different things that we are already aware of. So having said that, I hear you, okay?
Excellent. Okay, Jennifer,
Really quick, this is more for Maurice.
please speak into the mic.
Or I guess for both. But if we, as part of our, one of our initiative funding buckets, provide the affordable subsidy, would the 10 units then be required to be in the ICRA?
The anticipation is that the 10 would be sprinkled across, so the opportunity to use some of the ICURA funds to accomplish the 3 to 4 that would be part of the demonstration project here would be great.
Okay.
Those others, we're going to have to seek a different source of subsidy.
Okay. So then it wouldn't be the full amount that you're looking at towards us for. It would just be for a few in the air. Yeah, is that correct? Okay. All right. And then if they are in the ICRA, then would your selection process, I guess my question is, we have a specific, target priority population and specific goals outlined in our action plan. And so would you take that into consideration when you select the property owners for the, demonstration units? Because I would imagine that every URA or district has its own individual goals that they're trying to meet.
I'm not aware of how they differ, so.
I can answer
Like
that for you.
CD
In order to receive the TIF dollars, you would have to apply, align with our goals and criteria and eligibility requirements.
Would our oversight committee have oversight of that, or would we hand that off?
If we can create, in order to support an ADU program, we would probably have to create a similar PIP program. And so you would have oversight in terms of quarterly reporting and monitoring.
Shanisha, thank you.
So,
Into the mic, please.
just for clarification, so Prosper Portland, you have also a partnership with these two? Okay. So there is no type of funding that goes through, but are you working with, is there a percentage that both of you have, like you as Hacienda, maybe you have a 60% and then you have a 40%? I've worked with PCRI in the past, and you had major lists of people that you had to distribute, and it was very low amounts that you could distribute to the community that you served. So do they cut the amount of money that's distributed for the service of people that you serve, or is it a different amount for you? It just seems like it's such a low amount of people who are going to have access to ADUs and anything else.
So again, our goal here and what we're talking about tonight is let's test and see if this is something that we could scale up and do more of. So I would love to think that it's 10 that get started in 2020 and another 10 that get started in 2021.
Is that 10 people or 10%?
10 properties.
10 properties.
Properties.
Okay.
So the idea here is for all of the economic benefit reasons and everything else, if we can create a model that others can that we can scale up and others can replicate, we could do a lot more of these. But first, we have to prove it can be done, and we have to prove that it works for what these organizations have identified are the priority communities. So right now, the partners have come together and said, let's test this out together and create 10 units. And then from there, any one organization could take this on as part of their work in any specific community. Another builder could do these, a church. Once we know what it takes, that it's this amount of subsidy and this amount of loan can create this outcome, then we open it up. But for now, I think these 10, if we had the opportunity for ICURA dollars, that could potentially provide the subsidy for 3 or 4 units in the ICURA.
Thanks, Kay. Appreciate it very much. Great information.
Thank
you, guys. Thanks for being here tonight. Appreciate you.
Can I just end with one thing, because I did have my card up?
Yes, yes.
So I apologize. One of the things I wanted to say to this committee is that this is community-based organizations that have our values aligned with their values. And so they're strong in the community. One of the things we heard from the navigator is they say, okay, it's hard to do this connection point because of past perceptions of PHB and how that, and I think what happens a lot of times with also the community is they look at and they say, those challenges, or I should say with PDC, is what our navigators referred to as say, we wanted to look at some sort of rebranding so that we can get to the community. These community organizations are the same thing. So whether or not where PHB cannot get to, PCRI can. Where PHB cannot get to, Rose can, Hacienda can. And so I think that Verde can. So I think that this is an opportunity for us to be able to get a big impact in a lot of the missions that we're trying to do here today with very little effort on our half.
Thank you very much. We've got a wonderful parenting experience happening while one of our committee members is trying to get to her portion, and I want to make sure we're supportive of that. Thank you so much for being here, Karis. And we want to talk about the community livability
I'll be
grant.
quick. I did just want to tell the PCRI staff and Hacienda staff that are present, I think this model is great. And the fact that all of these sometimes competing organizations have come together to do this, that's significant. And that Meyer helped to bring that together. So thank you so much. And I agree with Maurice that this is a great opportunity. You're welcome. So quickly, there's the flyer in the back that looks like this. It's out on the table, and you probably, it's up there too. You probably have seen this. I've seen it everywhere, so good job in getting it out. I've seen posters at churches and in the community. So if we can just continue to get the word out about the Community Livability Grant, it is due by January 10th. I know that I usually get the calls from organizations like the 4th or 5th, or sometimes the 8th. So if we can just really beat the pavement and get the information out about this Community Livability Grant. One thing that I did want to put out to the Prosper Portland staff that is leading this effort, we as a committee did ask that there be a community interest session workshop, and I think I'm pretty sure everyone else agrees with me that we still would like that to happen. And my suggestion would be like an early Saturday in December to hold that at one of the locations that has benefited from this grant. So I'm thinking like the June Key Delta Community Center, or there's several organizations and buildings that have been beneficiaries of this grant. So if we could schedule a time to I would say just to have an info session and answer questions that people may have about the process.
Sue, do you want to come up and could we do office hours?
Yeah, what we've done, instead of having actual workshops on specific days at times,
yes,
we have on the application when they start to enter that they're interested, It asks, would you like a one-on-one telephone conversation or a meeting? So what we're doing is I'm meeting with them one-on-one or talking one-on-one, and as much time as they need rather than a workshop. So we're finding that that's.
You're getting good response from that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We're not getting applications.
I was just
yet.
going to ask, have we received any applications yet?
Not actual applications, but
But the interest
received
form.
probably 10 to 12 interests in talking to people. So it's getting out there.
Is it possible to, same as some of the other, the information sharing, is it possible for us to get just a little snapshot of the who's sent in an interest form, just so we can know demographics, that's all?
Sure, yeah, we can, I can get a list of which nonprofits have.
Right, and if we know someone with those organizations, some of us around this table can reach out to them and push them a little further and answer questions and help them.
And some of them have come in and they're not actually eligible because they're not a nonprofit or they don't have a place where they provide those services. So those are a lot of the things that we're fielding right now. And I just lost my train of thought. So yes, it's going really well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions or comments for Karis Ashish? Thank you, Karis. Appreciate it. Cultural Business Hub, Jennifer.
No real updates. We had a good tabling event at the My People's Market. I don't know where the actual forms ended up, but we'll add the results to our community outreach. And I think we're still, Joanna's not here, but we're still waiting on results from the online survey for small businesses as well. The next thing that we're trying to push forward is reformatting the Cultural Business Hub bus tour into a workshop. So you'll probably be receiving an invitation from Joanna soon, probably in December as well. So it's becoming a packed month. But yeah.
Any questions? Yes, Alicia. Microphone.
Can you remind us again, especially for the new members, maybe the purpose of the Cultural Business Hub and what our outcomes are?
Yeah, so the Cultural Business Hub is number 5 in the Northeast Action Plan, and it's meant to provide a space for small African-American-owned businesses. However, when we started our investigations and the subcommittee, it was apparent that not enough was known about the Cultural Business Hub, not enough was known in order to make a NOFA or Notice of Funding. And so since then, we've been trying to go do public outreach and then also our own information sessions to really define our criteria for development. So basically, the components are what is feasible, will it serve the community, and does the community want it? Those are the answers that I feel are necessary to be the questions that I feel are necessary to be answered in order to make a recommendation to move this forward. If we can't get those questions answered, then I don't feel confident that we will be able to support the Cultural Business Hub fully, because I don't want to just throw $4 million out there just because. It needs to support the action plan. And right now, we're going through a lot of different, starts and stops, trying to, we get a lot of momentum and then we stop. So for example, there was a good session a couple weeks back where we requested for an RFI process to be initiated that looked like it was moving forward, and then it was stopped. The Cultural Business Hub bus tour, obviously, was moving forward, and then it was stopped. We're going to try to reformat that, but at this point, it's been a year of this start and stop process. So at the end of this year, if we just can't support a Cultural Business Hub, then that's the way it's going to be, unfortunately.
And so then would that be that we would then maybe be able to consider a different way to use those funds, roll it into a different bucket, or?
I think potentially. I mean, the ADU program, started and stopped, but then we found another alternative route for it. So I don't see it being like no, never. The thing is, we don't have enough information to substantiate it, and we also don't have enough information to be like, no, this is horrible. But I can't make a recommendation for it if there's not enough information. So yeah, that's where we are right now.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jennifer? All right, next on the agenda item is number 6, old business. Right, an update about ICURA boundary criteria.
It was requested that Prosper Portland identify the criteria to amend the interstate corridor urban renewal boundaries. And so we are in the process of working on those criteria and looking at our past amendments and what were the decisions for bringing properties into the URA, and looking at how those decisions align with the North-Northeast CDI. And so at the work session, we'll have that information for you. And we're also working with the Portland Housing Bureau to kind of look at some of the criteria for amending the URA boundaries, like the water bill site that was recently amended. So we'll have that information available at the at our work session. Gwen?
So that's essentially where I was going with it, is that the December work session will also be an opportunity for the Prosper Portland staff to provide us with the criteria, the processes for expanding the ICURA. I think that just based on my experience with this committee, that we've been looking forward to having something much more constructive and real, as opposed to imagined, or the line seems to be fully blurred. So I think it would be really great for all of us to attend the December meeting for that purpose as well. But truthfully, I put my card up because I wanted to ask you, Kim, do you think that it would be possible for us to make recommendations, decisions, or anything else in December without that information?
To make recommendations about increasing the MI, the maximum indebtedness, and including the hill block into?
Yes.
And I'm sorry. Well, yeah, I think when that should be a valuable part of the discussion to help you make that decision. And so I think we could, we can kind of play it by ear if it's not.
Put on record that I don't know how to make a decision without criteria. So.
Okay, thank you.
Jennifer.
Yes. Yeah. So.
Mike, please. You guys speak in.
Yes.
Yeah, we can.
Oh, okay. Yes. So, it was regarding, oh, right, okay, so at the work session, will you also talk about, because I know the items listed on the agenda are talking about increasing the boundary, and will that conversation include increasing the boundary for individual homes or just the larger property?
Yes, we are. We'll be discussing that as well.
Okay. And that's not like, that's just advice, honestly, on my part. I don't think it would be wise to talk about including a large parcel without also equally having considered the homeowners. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Alicia.
So I just want to make a clarifying comment or question, I don't know. I just want to make sure that we're not spending time talking about the rules around adding property into the URA, because we've done that several times.
No, we actually are looking at what are some equitable ways of making these decisions about amending the TIF district. And so I think it's going to be a very valuable, I think it's going to be a really good discussion, because it will look at options of bringing in additional property. We only have like roughly 279 acres left. So how do we make these decisions, in ways that have been different in the past, So we have to be very careful and very deliberate in making these decisions in a transparent and equitable way.
Maurice.
And I would agree with everyone here that we've kind of talked about this really early on. What I would like to see, us have a little bit more focus. So if the focus is how do we increase, for example, how do we increase 100 existing African-American homeowners into the URA, that's a focused area that then we could sit there and say, how are we going to deliver that? And so we can build beyond that. So ideally, what I would like to know is if we can, or if Prosper can provide us what they feel like that number is, so that we can then determine how it gets delivered rather than having a work session to discuss all.
And you will receive all that. It's part of our mapping, where we're going to map how many homeowners are within 25 feet of the URA, how many homeowners are within 50 feet of the URA, and how many are within possibly 100. But that will kind of give you an idea of the land area that would be needed to bring in additional homes. But then, there's not just single family. You also, Lisa, you mentioned commercial businesses that are east of MLK, that's outside of the URA. So we're trying to take a look at not just single family, but what are the other future requests, and what is a process that would allow people to be able to make a request. Now, what is the request process? And so we're really kind of grappling with that, and we'll discuss that more. And we will provide you with the mapping and the options that we're considering before the meeting, so you'll have a chance to review.
Yeah, and so I guess what I wasn't looking necessarily at is that concentric circles which you laid out, where it's like how many are 5 miles, 10 miles, so on. What I'm looking at is more of a focused effort of saying, okay, how many African Americans can we serve? And so if we're doing that as an example, I think then we could actually, then the mapping will map itself. The URA wasn't created by drawing a circle and then drawing a bigger circle. It's all over the board. And so I think we have to look at it and say, how do we ensure that we have inclusion? Just because we go so many feet outside doesn't necessarily mean that we positively impact African American homeowners. We could expand, and they could all be majority folks that we just expanded into the URA. So I think we have to be a little bit more deliberate in the way we look at the mapping. And so that's what I'd hope that Prosper would be able to provide for us.
Yeah, I agree.
Lisa, and then Gwen.
He basically said what I wanted to say, like having demographic information to go along with that would be most helpful, so that we're not just increasing to be increasing.
Yes. And not everybody want to come into the URA. That's another consideration.
Gwen.
Prior to moving to public comments, I think it would be a great time to honor our exiting past co-chair, Ms. Leisha.
Y'all trying to get rid of me already? I don't have one more meeting or something?
No, we just wanted to utilize this time now to express our appreciation. Wait, let me talk. Thank you. Yeah, you have been an inspiration to many of us, Leisha, and it's not just because of your passion, which we all feel. It's also because you show up, and you're a wonderful example of showing up and how important that is for a committee like this. So I want to personally thank you, because I look around the table, and oftentimes I look to you to make the hard statement. So thank you for that. And I just want to give everybody on the committee an opportunity to roast her. No, just kidding. And then I know that Ms. Moreland has a gift for you, so yes.
In the interest of time, can I sincerely say this I do not want this to be about me, because I'm only here because I really enjoy all of you. And we have all become friends and more than just committee members. And I don't think all committees can say that, right? So this is not about me. Kim, I appreciate you giving me gifts. I appreciate you allowing me to serve on this committee and choosing a committee of folks that aren't the usual suspects, that have had an opportunity to civically engage and be a part of this committee. So really, I think we should be honoring Kim and her boldness in choosing a diverse committee like this. And then instead of you guys talking about me, I would just like to say something quick about all of you all. How about that? So Ms. Smith, I want to thank you for always speaking up about your truth in the face of anything else, and showing up and being the elder that I can look to and respect. And I can never call you Shonisha. I have to call you Ms. Smith because of that. And I think that you bring so much to this committee that grounds us and brings a peacefulness to us. So I thank you for that. Jennifer, I appreciate you. I remember when you were like, I'm going to step down. I don't belong here. And we met for coffee. And I think that you have brought so much to us as a committee. And I appreciate you for sticking it out with us. You're going to be here longer than I am, right? So thank you for coming back and staying with us, given the optics. You know, that was your concern. So thank you for being here. Dorsey, I really have stayed mostly because you have said to me, you better stay, even when I felt like giving up. So you'll be here long after I'm gone, and I think that they're going to need your voice, and you'll speak for those folks that are not in the URA, who may be wanting to get into URA, because we've had this discussion a long time as well. Karen, the silent ambassador over there, who always is here and showing up in person, meek and humble, and coming to just give a smooth delivery to everything that you said. Tonight, I think was the first time I heard you really speak up and say, wait a minute, this is, right?
Model built.
Yes. So I appreciate you. Gwen, for coming in, attending community meetings before being a part of this committee, and saying I think that I have a voice and I can add to whatever needs to take place at this committee, during this committee meetings, and being on this committee, and then stepping into the chair position. You bring something that I didn't bring, which was a way to articulate yourself gracefully and authentically, without ruffling too many feathers, but still making sure that your voice and your point were heard. So I think everybody appreciates that. Maurice, you stepping into the co-chair position, you know, we talked about this in the very beginning, and we're like, I'll do it, you do it, you know, whatever. So you let me have the opportunity to do it, and then you come in the second time, being voted in, I should say being voted in, but accepting it, and making sure to hold everybody accountable. I ask that you please continue to do that here, outside, because we're going to need that as well as you guys go into the next phase. Quentin, I don't have nothing to say about you too, new. I'm glad that you're here. And Dr. Holt, what can I say? I appreciate you sticking it out with us and being a voice of reason and holding us in check. We didn't always see eye to eye, but you were respectful, and I appreciate that, because sometimes people can be disrespectful in their authority, and they can be disrespectful in the position given to them, right? And you were never disrespectful to me, even if we didn't agree, and so I appreciate that about you, being able to speak your truth and do it without being disrespectful to any of us really here on the committee, so thank you. Oh, and thank you for helping me to be a better facilitator.
Yes. Absolutely. And we give a hand to Miss Alicia. Thank you so much. Do we have any public comments? I didn't receive any cards or anything. Is there anyone who wanted to say anything tonight? You're what?
Hi, I'm Diane Clay. I came here today to kind of get a perspective of what you
Into
guys
the mic?
do. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I came here today to get a perspective of what you guys do and to really kind of hear about what Prosper Portland does. I am a business owner and property owner in the interstate corridor, And as I move forward, I can't create generational wealth. I can't create wealth, and doors are closing. Every place I go to, they tell me no. So I'm coming here today to say, okay, there's all these guidelines and barriers, and then you're telling me there's money out here for people like me, but I can't seem to access it. So I did do that letter of interest, which I just found out today that I was denied, but I don't understand how moving forward. Yes, my home is in a residential area, so it's not commercial, but I'm running a business out of it. So moving forward, what is there out there for me? So I came here to talk about that and just to kind of share my story to say, I need some kind of program or some kind of grant to be created for people like me. Here I am, a business owner. I'm African American. I'm in the interstate corridor. I can't go to the Portland Housing Center because I own more than one property, okay? I can't run my business successfully because I can't get the loans I need from the bank because for who I am, you know, I'm African American. I can't access funds from Prosper Portland that says they're for me because my properties are not commercially zoned. So from there, where do I go?
Excellent. Thank you so much. That is a fantastic conversation. I think there are two co-chairs that would be great to follow up with and to interact around.
Don't go anywhere.
Yep.
And one of the things I would say with that is, as a committee, we really have to look at, and I know our navigators talked about this, creating some sort of fund that creates access to capital a lot easier. Like I mentioned before, you know, we need to do this a lot faster with more accuracy and with more results. And so that should be our focus if we're going to help these firms that need the help. And so we got to figure out a way of doing that rather than setting these barriers up, whether unintentionally or intentionally.
Agreed. I'm not trying to short us. It's clear that things are shutting down around us.
Right.
So I'm going to end our meeting, but I'm not going to stop your discussion. And I think that what you just identified is a great concern among the committee members. And so don't leave. Committee members, please hang out and feel free to engage and interact. But officially, we're going to close our time together. Thank you. Don't move your body. Thanks so much. The question that was asked around deadline, according to the sheet I received from Myra, the board, Prosper is going to meet January 15th. So you need to have your decisions determined by that time around maximum indebtedness, around the suggestion from the Williams-Russell project, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Great meeting, a lot covered. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr. Holt. Great job.
Have a good night, everybody.